Welcome to this video on the series on gas exchange and transport. And in today's lesson, we are focusing specifically on the circulatory system, and the next lesson that follows will be in detail on the heart. So if you're wondering exactly where this fits in with the Edexcel syllabus, this is a paper 2 topic, exchange and transport in animals, and we are over here on the circulatory system. Okay, so to start off with, here are 10 questions. I want you to pause the video and simply write down nice and quickly your gut feel, one-word answers if possible, to these questions before restarting the video and purple penning. So how did you do? What do you mean when we talk about the concentration of a substance? That's, for example, how much salt there is in water, the amount of substance in a certain volume. Question 2, by what process do particles move from a place of greater concentration to lower concentration? It is, of course, diffusion, not osmosis, because it's not talking about water or through a semi-permeable membrane. Number 3, in diffusion, do particles move up or down a concentration gradient? It is, of course, down the concentration gradient, high to low. For what processes in the body do we need oxygen? You're absolutely right. It is aerobic respiration in the mitochondria of the cell, which releases, never produces, releases energy. What gases are exchanged in the lungs? Carbon dioxide and water, and oxygen. What molecule is used to carry oxygen in red blood cells? It is, of course, hemoglobin, that iron-containing molecule on red blood cells. A cuboid has a side of 4 centimeters by 4 centimeters by 5 centimeters. What units are used for the surface area? So, of course, for area, it is centimeters squared. Okay, so you'd have to, if you were looking at the total area, you would have to look at the sides very carefully for that one. And the next one, you are looking at the volume. Volume is always measured in centimeters cubed, which if it was a liquid would be milliliters. A cell has a surface area of 24 centimeters squared and a volume of 8 centimeters cubed. What is the ratio of its surface area to its volume? So I'm going to go 24 to 8, and when I simplify that, that gives me a 3:1 ratio. How did you do? Hopefully you've got this. If there's anything that you forgot about or need to make a note about in purple pen, do so now. Oh, one more question. How are lungs adapted for gas exchange? You can talk about the alveoli, the great surface area, and the blood system, the blood supply. There's a few things you can add to that answer. Okay, right, so let's put that away. Now for this lesson, I want you to sit back and just really concentrate. You can print the notes at the end of this. I will add it on to show my homework, which looks like this and summarizes what we are learning today, so that you can focus on what I am saying. Okay, so what exactly is the circulatory system? This is a system in our body that pumps substances around the body, and it is made up of the heart, it's made up of our blood vessels, and it also includes the blood in which the substances are transported. So the heart is the pump, and very important in the system, the arteries carry blood away from the heart and the veins carry blood to the heart. Now let's look at this diagram in a little bit more detail. Unlike a fish, which just has one circuit, you can see in mammals there are 2 circuits. There's a circuit from the heart to the lungs and back that allows the blood to drop off carbon dioxide and pick up oxygen, which is the job of the lungs, gas exchange. And then for the heart to pump the oxygenated blood all the way around the body and then pick up carbon dioxide and return it to the heart. So that's why in mammals we have a double circulatory system. Now, let's have a look over here. Why is this color-coded red and blue? So the red is the oxygenated blood. Now, what's interesting is we're seeing that the blood pumped to the body is oxygenated, and the blood coming from the lungs to the heart is oxygenated, and that makes sense. Now we come to an important part where people often fall into a trap. When asked what is an artery, a lot of people say an artery is a blood vessel that carries oxygenated blood. The problem with that answer is there's an exception to the rule, because over here, this blue blood vessel carrying blood, deoxygenated blood, to the lungs is in fact an artery, not a vein. So in order to not fall into a trap, this is what you need to remember. The two A's. AA, the arteries carry blood away from the heart, and there's no exceptions to that. Okay, so here is the pulmonary artery carrying blood away from the heart to the lungs, and here is the aorta, the main artery carrying blood from the heart to the rest of the body. And the same happens with the veins. All veins carry blood back to the heart. Most veins are going to be carrying deoxygenated blood. The exception is the pulmonary vein, because that's carrying oxygenated blood to the heart. Okay, we'll look at that more when we look at the heart again in detail. Okay, right, so I added in this diagram just to show you all the different organs need to get blood vessels. So over here we've got the circuit to the lungs and back. From the heart, blood can flow through the aorta, and from the aorta it can branch to the brain, it can branch to the liver, it can branch to your stomach and your intestines, to your kidneys, to your legs, to all parts of the body. So it really is a complex transport system around your body, and then eventually all of those paths lead back to the heart carrying deoxygenated blood to get pumped to the lungs to pick up more oxygen. So this is a very simplified diagram. So here we've got the heart. Arteries carry blood away from the heart to eventually the capillaries, which go to every single cell in the body. And those arteries are going to split, just like our M25 splits into A roads, splits into B roads, splits into tiny, tiny, tiny little parts. So the exact same system happens in our body. So over here, oxygen is going to be dropped off by the capillaries into these cells. Carbon dioxide is going to be released by diffusion into the capillaries, and then the blood is going to flow into veins back to the heart. And here you can see these veins have got valves, and the function of the valves is to stop the blood flowing backwards, because in the veins the blood is no longer flowing at a high pressure, and that's because it doesn't have the pressure of the heart pumping it. So to avoid the blood from flowing backwards, the blood vessels, the veins, have got these valves, and that is what allows you to feel a pulse. It's a valve opening and closing as blood is passing through it. So over here, the circulatory system consists of a heart and all the blood vessels, arteries, veins, and capillaries. Okay, now I've included this amazing picture of the heart. In this picture, what's happened is scientists have injected the heart, injected the blood vessels with a very specific type of polymer that turns into a plastic when it solidifies. And what this shows you is the incredible network of blood vessels serving the heart. You can see the aorta here in the big thick red one and its branches, and you've also got the vena cava over there. But what you notice is a huge amount of network of blood vessels going to the tissue of the heart itself. And that's because the heart muscle tissue also needs to have a supply of oxygen in order to keep on functioning. And if one of those blood vessels is blocked, even a tiny capillary is blocked by a clot, that is when someone has a heart attack and the tissue around that starts to die. And this diagram just shows in a little bit more detail that network. So you've got the arteries, and they branch and get smaller and smaller. We call them arterioles, and eventually we get to the capillaries, and then that whole network coming back. What I want you just to notice over here is the difference in sizes in the artery, and the structure of the artery here, and the structure of the vein on the left-hand side. We'll talk about that more in a moment. Okay, so we need to know the differences between arteries, veins, and capillaries. Now, on the diagrams that you can see, which one do you think is which? So this is obviously a vein. Notice the very big hole here. This hole is known as the lumen. That's the part that the blood flows through. This is a cross section. If I had to draw it as a longitudinal section, it would look like this. And I can, of course, draw the little valves in here as well. The artery doesn't have valves, but it has a very small lumen, a little bit like your shower. That helps to increase the pressure of which the blood is flowing, so that the oxygenated blood can get to the cells a lot quicker. Great design. And also you've got much thicker muscle walls. Now the reason for the thicker muscle walls and the elastic tissue of the arteries is because it's got to cope with the immense pressure that the blood is flowing. We don't want it to split, because that would be disastrous. And then you have your capillary, which is only 1 cell thick. So you might be asked in a 6-mark question to describe the differences between arteries, veins, and capillaries. And here's some ideas. And in a comparison, always compare like with like. So it doesn't help comparing peas with cars. You need to compare peas with carrots. So the function of veins is to carry blood from the body to the heart. For capillaries, it's to allow the exchange of materials between the blood and the tissues. And for the arteries, it's to carry blood away from the heart. We can look about the walls. The walls of a vein is relatively thinner and mainly made out of collagen. And it's thinner because the blood is traveling at a lower pressure. The capillaries walls are very thin and they're permeable, only 1 cell thick, to help the diffusion of substances in and out of the blood vessels to the cells. And arteries, by contrast, have thick walls with smooth elastic layers. The elasticity just helps us to cope with the pressure. It resists the high pressure, and the muscle layers help the blood to be pumped around as well. By comparison, the veins have a large lumen to reduce the resistance to flow. Capillaries have a small lumen. Okay, in fact, the blood cells almost travel through single file. And the arteries have a small lumen to increase the pressure of the flow of blood. Veins have valves, whereas none of the others have valves. Veins have blood traveling at a low pressure, where it is at high pressure in arteries, and the pressure falls completely in the capillaries. And the veins usually carry deoxygenated blood, except for the pulmonary vein, and then in the arteries carry oxygenated blood, except for the pulmonary artery. And the capillaries is where the oxygenated blood and deoxygenation exchange takes place. And if I had to do a model with plasticine to compare those, it could be something like this. So that brings us to the end of the section. Copy the notes that I have put for you in Show My Homework, or simply print it and then do the quiz to test for any gaps. Great work. Well done. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can have access to